Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast today with Jacob Maggard.
Dalton Phillips.
And obviously, we're rolling into another great week of college football. Again, if you guys are here, like, subscribe, comment, helps boost out the channel. Keep coming back. Obviously, we'll do a recap next week, Monday or Tuesday, generally when those come out. You'll be seeing this on a Thursday. These games this week, we are having a lesser week this week compared to the last few. A lot of teams not playing, got some bye weeks. Of course, you as a Tennessee fan, y'all have a bye week. But there is still some really, really great matchups on the table. And obviously, we'll dive into this first one, which is going to be really important in the Big 12. Cincinnati team that, of course, a few years ago was one of the best teams in the entire country playing into the playoff, and then joining the Big 12. And then you got Iowa State, who is kind of the leader up there with Texas Tech and potentially Arizona State in this conference. Obviously, you look at this quarterback matchup. This could be one of the best quarterback matchups we see this weekend. Rocco Becht, really great quarterback for Iowa State, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, only the 2 interceptions. And on the other side, Brendan Sorsby for Cincinnati has been incredible this year. He's their leading rusher with 4 touchdowns on the ground, but also got 10 touchdowns through the air and only 1 interception. So Sorsby has been incredible. There's really not much more you can ask for out of this guy. And he's trying to lead this offense into what will be a pretty big game against Iowa State that could maybe start their season in the Big 12. Dalton, go ahead and talk about these backs here.
Yeah, for Cincinnati, they have Toy Walker and Evan Pryor. Those two are good running backs, especially when your quarterback's running like he does.
Yeah.
And then for the other side of the ball, you have for Iowa State. It's one of my favorite backfields, and it's Carson Hansen and Abu Sama. I love both of them. The two are my favorite running backs in the Big 12 for sure. And that's just a great backfield to have, especially when you have an excellent quarterback like Rocco Becht.
Yeah, and we've talked about Sama and Hanson a ton this
Yep,
last year and this year, so you guys know them.
yep.
Hanson, obviously, the lead back this year. Sama, more of that lead guy last year. Just an interesting backfield. Then, like you said, the Tawi Walker transferring into Cincinnati has been pretty good, but again, Sorsby's going to be their lead guy in the ground game. Going down and looking at these receivers, Eskelston had a really great start to the year. He's kind of slowed down a little bit. Obviously, still being the lead receiver for Rocco Becht, but he can go to a lot of guys. They've got a pretty deep room. Then on the other side, Cyrus Allen is the lead receiver for Cincinnati. 23 catches on the year, 273 yards, 5 touchdowns. Very easily the best target Sorsby's targeted, but he'll go to his backs as well. And Cincinnati, again, this is a pretty great start for them. They were not expected to be a top dog in this conference, but now competing to potentially get a huge win that would probably have them sitting around the rankings in the AP poll. We'll go ahead and make our pick here. Obviously, this one taking place in Cincinnati, where they are currently a betting odds favorite. Dalton, what do you want? What do you want here?
Yeah, I think Cincinnati. I don't know how the home area is there. I feel like they might have a few people there, but I believe this Iowa State team is just too much for this Cincinnati team.
Yeah, and I'm going to be on the same wave with you. I think that Cincinnati, they've had a great start to the year. It's been a fun start for them. But Iowa State looking to move to 6-0, 3-0 in the Big 12. This is a real legit Iowa State team. So great quarterback play, coached well. I think they'll catch this victory here over Cincinnati. Moving on to our next game here, we got Texas taking on Florida in the swamp. And again, Florida having a pretty rough start to the year. 1-3, Bill Napier's seat is hotter than it's ever been. And there's a real legit argument here. If they drop to 1-4, 0-2 in the SEC, he might get fired. I don't. It's not a bad loss because of who it is, but it's a bad loss because you have 4 losses already. Of course, Texas, they've beat up on the 3 teams they're supposed to beat up on after that first loss. And Arch Manning's looked better as a quarterback. Not an elite passer by any means, but he does provide a pretty good rushing upside. I think he has 5 rushing touchdowns on the year, so you obviously can see his stats there: almost 900 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But Lagway clearly has been worse. 5 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. It's just not been a good year for him so far. Clearly looks like he's not ready to be competing against the top tier SEC schools. Dalton, talk about these running backs here.
With the Texas running backs, along with Arch Manning running the ball, you have Jarrett Gibson and Quintrevon Wisner. Jarrett Gibson's a younger guy. I feel like needs more carries. He's an athlete. The guy can make plays with the ball. And Quintrevon Wisner's that guy that you had luck with success with last year. I feel like you feed him the ball more, get that going, and then it helps out with Arch Manning. And then on the other side, with another quarterback that's not been had an upside like you were talking about, you have Jaden Baugh at running back, and that guy's an athlete. I think he
Yeah.
needs the ball more too, and like that is your best player in your offense, in my opinion. And if that's your best player, he should have the ball 25 times a game, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like a lot, because especially when your quarterback's lacking, that helps, and that'll help DJ Lagway grow in the spotlight.
yeah, and we've seen this with other teams this year, technically using their running backs as their entire source of offense,
Yeah.
passing it out to them, just getting them the ball, letting them make plays, and Baugh definitely can do that for them. Of course, Texas also has C.J. Baxter, who was out all year last year, and just hasn't been a huge contributor this year. You got to think maybe the injury is causing some issues there. You look down at the receiver for Texas. Parker Livingstone has been the guy. You've seen some big touchdown catches for him. He had a big one in the first game of the season when they were trying to make that comeback late against Ohio State. Then on the other side, Vinny Brown has obviously been pretty good for Florida. Now they had to replace a lot of talent, and they haven't been able to do that. But Brown hasn't been an issue, and pretty much like you look at it with the stats, I mean it's nearly 2/7 or exactly 2/7 of Lagway's passing yards all to him. Obviously, defensively, that's the story here. Texas's defense is incredible. They have a ton of superstar players on that defense that are still playing at that level. See Colin Simmons here listed as the sack leader, probably one of the best edge rushers in the entire country. And if they end up getting this win, I think Arch has got to play better, but this defense is probably what will do it for them. Going up to make a pick here, obviously a game taking place in the swamp. It's a scary location to have to go in and play. The fan base is still there, showing up for them, even though they're 1-3. And I think they fall to 1-4. Give me Texas on the road here. Arch Manning again, kind of turning it around, getting better. And more he starts, the better he'll get. I just think Texas's defense will be able to completely contain Florida. Dalton, what's your thought here?
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Texas, but I think this is going to be a very close game, especially if Arch doesn't show up like he needs to.
Yeah.
This is the kind of game that it's low key like a trap game. Like Florida the swamp is terrible. Tennessee hasn't won there in like 20 years, if
Yeah.
that says anything. And I've been watching that my whole life. I absolutely hate Florida. I might hate Florida as much as I hate Alabama. Like it's up there probably. And I just won't ever pick for Florida. I doubt it. Unless they're going against Alabama, I'll probably pick Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next one here, of course, Boise State, a team that at the beginning of the year looked like they were going to be the Group of Five team. They've picked it up a little bit and started playing some better football down the stretch. Then Notre Dame, massive blowout victory last week over Arkansas, where you saw Sam Pittman end up getting the axe and getting cut from his job, a guy that was beloved there, but that's not what Notre Dame worries about. They're worried about winning games, and they've got to win out, and they've got to blow people out of the water because the schedule doesn't look great. You go down and look at these stats. Maddox Madsen, returning quarterback for Boise State, he's had no issues this year getting going. 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, only 1 interception. He's been really good. He brings you a rushing upside as well. And overall, that offense seems to be ticking finally after they figured things out through that first one. And then on the other side for Notre Dame, I mean, C.J. Carr has been incredible. I know he's got 2 interceptions and he's only got 1,091 yards, but he's making plays left and right. He was adjusting stuff at the line of scrimmage last week, and they've kind of fully activated this offense. They got Jeremiah Love going on the ground. They got him through the air. They have their receiving core finally going on all cylinders. So I expect a lot out of this Notre Dame team. And of course, the big story here between these two programs, historically, pretty good running backs. Dalton, talk about those guys.
Yeah, Boise State's trying to fill the role of Ashton Jeanty, and they did it pretty good with Dylan Riley. That guy's a great athlete. He's
Yeah.
not as good as Jeanty is so far, but I could see this guy being up there with one of the better running backs in the country eventually. And also talking about one of the better running backs in the country, you on the other side of the ball you have Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. Both of those guys are absolutely insane athletes. Jeremiah Love is probably the best athlete in college football, in my
Yeah.
opinion,
One of.
and that's how this team needs to get going. If you have two of the best running backs in college football, you know what you do? You feed them the ball, and like that should be your identity. Not, I mean, I get C.J. Carr's good, but give your running backs the ball.
Yeah, and last week they finally did, and you
Yeah,
saw what happened. They won by
it
40
it, it
points.
works. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Love had 4 touchdowns in that game. So
yo,
just go to this guy repeatedly. I mean, he's that good. Obviously, you go down and look at the receiving leaders. Malachi Fields transferred over from Virginia. Had a great year so far. Only 13 catches, has 275 yards and a touchdown. A huge target on the outside. One of the better big catch, wide radius type of guys in college football. Then Latrell Caples for Boise State. He's returning, so Maddox Madsen already has a connection with him. And having a good season so far as well. 15 catches, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns. Boise obviously looking to spread the ball around, but mainly going to be running the ball, and kind of the same thing with Notre Dame. They're going to want to run the ball, get Price and Love going, and again, we'll see how this one rolls out because these are two solid defenses as well. It's still Notre Dame going to be big time favorites in this one, taking place in their stadium as well. Dalton, who do you have in this one?
I think Notre Dame is just the way better football team here. If it was Boise State last year, I'd say it was a close game, but I still would
Yeah.
have given it to Notre Dame. But I'm going to go Notre Dame here.
Yeah, and again, Notre Dame was in that national championship last year. They
Yep.
proved the real talent they have. They proved that Marcus Freeman is a phenomenal head coach. He's going to have great defenses. He's going to be able to run the ball. And once they figured things out this year, I mean, again, they lost by four combined points to two top 10 teams. So it's not like this team has lost bad games so far. And I'm agreeing with you here. Give me Notre Dame. And I don't think they'll cover 17 and a half, but heck, they might because they gotta blow everybody out the rest of the year. Moving on to our next one here, got Virginia going on the road in what could possibly be one of the toughest competitions or contests they have left in their schedule. I mean, this might be the hardest game left. Playing Louisville, who's undefeated, obviously another contender in the ACC. And you look at Louisville being 4-0. Now, they're not ranked, and Virginia is at 4-1. Part of that being Louisville just hasn't had a really tough schedule to start the year. This will be their first big contest, truthfully. But luckily, they're gonna get it at home. Look at these quarterback statistics. Chandler Morris last week, it was kind of a weird game for him because overall he played pretty good. I think he was even awarded Player of the Week in the ACC, but he also threw three interceptions, which he just can't do. So, again, if he does that on the road at Louisville, you would assume that'd be a huge advantage for Louisville. Still has nearly 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns on the year, playing pretty good for them. And then for Louisville, Miller Moss. We talked about him a lot last year, and him transferring in makes a big difference for this offense. They go from Tyler Shuck to Miller Moss, who is also going to probably end up being an NFL quarterback someday. And he's not playing as good as you'd like him to, but they also haven't had to have him a ton with these blowouts they've had. So again, good quarterback matchup, but more importantly, these two teams want to run the ball. Dalton, talk about these
Yep.
running backs.
Yeah, UVA has Jamari Taylor, and he's got almost 400 rushing yards on the season, and that's says enough itself. That guy's a heck of an athlete. They're coming off of a huge win. They're going to be trying to spark it hot,
Yeah,
keep ranked, stay ranked. And then for Louisville, you Isaac Brown. He's been questionable, suffered an injury, but I believe this guy, this guy's a playmaker. This is the kind
yeah.
of guy you got to have on your team to win football games.
Yeah, he is their superstar. If there's
Yep.
anybody to highlight on this Louisville team, it's Isaac Brown. It's a guy that was talked about as a potential Heisman candidate before the year. Some injuries, some blowout scores keep him out of the game. Has definitely hurt his season total statistics, but he looks like a probable, so he should be able to play in this one. Would be a big loss if he doesn't. Looking down at the receivers, Harris being the lead guy for Virginia, nearly 400 yards on the year, 21 catches, three touchdowns, having a great season so far for them. But again, they're focused on running the ball as they did against Florida State. They've got a couple guys over 200 yards on the season. Then Bale being the lead receiver on the other side, they're having to replace NFL talent on that side of the ball. So he's come in, done a pretty good job, 332 yards, and also 23 catches and two touchdowns. So been the lead target for Moss. And like I said before, I mean, that we talked about last time with what Lagway's receiving looked like. This is a third of his receiving yards, so it's going to be his favorite guy. Then you look at this defense, and one name that has to be mentioned is Clev Lubin. This guy is incredible at rushing the passer. Now, again, he's not played the full game in some of these games because of the scores. He has already got 3.5 sacks in the season. He's only playing halves of football games here. This guy's going to cause some real havoc and potentially get in the backfield. And if he does, I look for Louisville to have a chance here because of that pass rush ability and potentially his run stopping ability. Going up to make a pick here, and again, you see a pretty wild spread here, almost 7 points when Virginia is a ranked football team coming off a big win. You know me, you know I'm never going to pick the Virginia Cavaliers. I hate Virginia just as much as about anybody, so give me Louisville here. I do think Virginia will hang in this game though, because their running game, that's how you go on the road and you beat somebody, and technically in this case, it is an upset on spread, not on AP poll ranking, but you go in there, you stick in the game because you can run the ball and play defense. I think Virginia is actually pretty good this year, and they're going to be able to stay in it. But I think Louisville is just a better football team. Give me Louisville here.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the ranked team here. I don't like UVA that much either. I'm just like not huge on them, but I think that this UVA team has something to prove to people, and they're gonna try to do it against Louisville here because everybody's hating on them.
Moving to our next one here, obviously this is the game of the week. This is a huge game. You could argue obviously this and Miami, Florida State, but Florida State losing that game definitely hurt that one. Vanderbilt is 5-0, rolling into Bryant-Denny Stadium, and there's a real argument to be had that Vanderbilt should be ranked inside the top 10. This is a 5-0 football team, and they have blown people out of the water. I mean, they are one of the best teams in the entire country when it comes to their completion percentage and it comes to their passing in general, which is unbelievable because what is this team known for? Running the football. they have multiple guys that are great rushers. Their quarterback is a phenomenal rusher, and they're one of the best passing teams in the entire country. So this is a scary team to run into right now, and they're a spinning buzzsaw coming into Bryant-Denny. For the Alabama side, Ty Simpson has played incredible football the last 3 games. He's done exactly what he needs to do, but he's also proven that under pressure, he's really struggling. And those statistics are the ones that you look at and say, can a team like a Vanderbilt come in here and get after him a little bit and maybe cause some issues for him? He's one of the worst quarterbacks under pressure. So still only has no interceptions and 11 touchdowns. So really great start overall from him. Again, I think Bama fans were a little mad at him after game one and shouldn't have been because this guy's locked in and got him to a 3-1, and obviously number 10 team in the entire country. Dalton, talk about the running backs here in this one, as it will be very important.
Yes. For Vanderbilt, they have Cedric Alexander, great running back, and you also have Diego Pavia, great running back there by himself. And then for the other side of the ball, you have Jam Miller. He's finally back, and that's a heck of an athlete there. He's a game changer for this Alabama team. I think he's one of the main reasons they propelled to a win against Georgia.
Yeah, and again, they have to have him. If they don't
Yep.
have that run game going, this team has been proven to shut down without it. I mean, the second half of the Georgia game, they were nothing. No offense, couldn't score points, but if they have a run game going, they are scary because the quarterback is playing pretty well right now. You look down at the passing lead or receiving leaders. Of course, Eli Stowers is having an awesome year. We talked about, hey, he's probably the best tight end in the entire country, showing why he's in that conversation. 300 yards already on the year. And then on the other side for Alabama, Ryan Williams has had some really good games and some really rough games. Those 2 games, other than the huge one he had, really haven't been all that impressive. But Jeremy Bernard, on the other hand, has been impressive. He is the lead target for Ty Simpson. He's the outside guy. He's the playmaker. And so far this year, he's been that over and over again. Last but not least, you talk about defenses. And I don't think a lot of people thought this Vanderbilt defense was going to be incredible. Capers coming off the edge with 3.5 sacks is phenomenal, and they're also tackling, just making plays and not allowing things to slip out behind them, and that's why they're winning these games the way they are. And then for Alabama, they just have to be able to get after Pavia and force loss of yards because Vanderbilt does not lose yards, man. Their offense, it just moves forward, it moves forward, it moves forward. So they're able to go up and down the field and at least control field position, if anything. Going to make a pick in this one, obviously, there's an argument to be had that this Vanderbilt team is the best that they've ever looked. And if they go into Bryant-Denny and play with real confidence, they have a chance in this one. But I'll leave it a little bit of a cliffhanger, Dalton. I'll let you go first on this pick here.
Yeah, I really don't like either one of these teams. Both are Tennessee
Yeah.
rivals. One is more of my rival than Tennessee's. I mean, obviously we have a rivalry with Alabama, but I feel like I have a true hatred in my heart because growing up with a bunch of Alabama fans, I have a true hatred for Alabama. Vanderbilt's also a rival though, and I think this Vanderbilt team is excellent, but Brian Denny is a different animal in my opinion. Tennessee goes down there in a couple weeks. I'll be down there too, and that place is just different. Like
Yeah.
it's one of the hardest places to play in college football. Yes, I do think Diego Pavia is the kind of guy to win there, but I don't think it happens 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and call me crazy here, but I'm going to side with Vanderbilt. Now, I've already voiced my hatred for Alabama. You guys know I don't like them, but I just think this Vanderbilt team is actually that good. I'm not really, again, the issues that Alabama has, some of their biggest problems, what they let happen to them last week. Run the ball down their throat all game. Georgia crushed them in the run game. Georgia just didn't have enough on the defensive side in the first half. Then what is their other issue? Pressure. They can't handle pressure. Well, Georgia wasn't getting after Ty Simpson, so he was controlled, confident, and let the ball go in the first half. Vanderbilt has got after quarterbacks this year, done a really good job at pressuring quarterbacks, and actually one of the best in the country at it. And then also Pavia. His biggest thing is under pressure. He's the second best in college football under pressure. And Alabama's going to bring it because they're going to want to force negative plays because Vanderbilt just doesn't lose yards very often. And I just think all that stuff favors them. And I do think the home field advantage for Alabama is a huge, huge thing. And I think that's why this will be so, so close. But I just like Vanderbilt's team. I think that they're built to win this game. And they attack all of Alabama's weaknesses very well. So give me Vanderbilt here in what will be a very close game. I mean, we're talking probably coming down to an overtime game or even potentially a field goal to win it. But I just like Vanderbilt better. Moving on to our next one here, Michigan State taking on Nebraska. And Nebraska, one of the best passing teams in the entire country. Very interesting because they've always been more of a run-first team, but with Dylan Raiola, who's got really high completion percentage, has done very well leading this offense. You got to look at the passing stats. Like I said with Raiola, I mean, again, great completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, only 1 interception, and 1,137 yards through 4 games. A really great season from him so far. And then Aiden Childs being the starter at Michigan State. a guy that's expected to be one of the top tier athletes, one of the top tier QBs potentially. And he's had a good year so far, but nothing special. And I would favor Raiola in that quarterback matchup. Dalton, talk about the running backs here.
Yeah, for MSU, a team that we never really covered that often. That's a rare team for us to cover, and that's Mekhi Frazier. This guy's doing what he needs to do, especially with the Michigan team that's not playing as bad as they usually do. Michigan State team that's not playing as bad as they usually do. And then for Nebraska, is part of the Johnson and Johnson connection I talked about last year. Emmett
Yeah.
Johnson. This guy's averaged almost 5 yards a carry, almost at that 400-yard mark in 4 games. That's excellent, especially behind a quarterback like Dylan Raiola that can sling the rock and make plays. I mean, that's the kind of guy you want in that backfield with him.
Yeah, and again, you look at this receiving. Obviously, you talk about Michigan State and Kelly being nearly a third of Aiden Child's passing yards, 21 catches, 317 yards. But on the other side for Nebraska, this is the really fun passing attack. Barney Jr. been great this year, 21 for 301. But also they have Dane Key behind him, who's a big play guy. So they've got multiple weapons they can go to, as well as a good pass catching tight end, and the running backs can be used in the passing game. So this Nebraska offense in general is really high powered, and I expect when they're playing at home here, they'll get it going early. Obviously, you're looking at the spread here, a 10.5 point spread, but a very important game for Nebraska. If they drop this one, they will move to 0-2 in the Big Ten and almost eliminate their chances in conference play. But I don't see that happening. I trust Matt Rule. I think he's a great coach. I think Dylan Raiola has been a good quarterback so far. And like you said, Emmett Johnson is one of the best backs in this entire conference. So give me Nebraska to get a huge win here at home.
Yeah, I'm going to side with you in Nebraska. I think they're just too high powered of an offense for MSU to keep in the game with.
Moving on to our next one here, Texas Tech taking on a very tough Houston team that wasn't expected to be as good as they have been this year. They've kind of got things firing. They got Connor Wegman playing pretty good football, using his rushing upside, which has kind of been his thing with them, especially so far. And the other side for Baron Morton at Texas Tech, nearly 70% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, almost 1,100 yards, and only the 3 interceptions. So having a pretty good year so far. And again, he has to lead them. This offense overall has been really solid, but that defense is obviously the big talking point for Texas Tech. But first, let's talk about these running backs, Dalton.
Yeah, for Texas Tech, Cameron Dickey, and an offense that's like an air raid like theirs, he's doing exactly what he needs to do, get yards when he gets the ball. And then for Houston, you have Dean Connors. That guy is, they're going to have to rely on this guy a little bit more, in my opinion. He's got a lot of carries already, but I feel like that's the kind of guy that sparks the offense up that helps Wegman out at quarterback.
Yeah, and he was really, really great at Rice last year. He was probably one of their star players. Stays in the state of Texas and transfers over to Houston. And now they got this team looking at 4-0. I think that they've made good decisions in their transfer of targets, getting Wegman, getting Connors, and just creating a really solid offense that I don't think a lot of people were expecting out of Houston this year. Going down looking at the receiving leaders, Coy Eakin is the guy for Texas Tech, been the lead receiver all year, 14 catches, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then Stephen Johnson on the other side for Houston, 235 yards on only 8 catches. So really, really great on every catch he makes. Big time playmaker for them. They probably want to try to get him the ball just a little bit more. But the story in this one is going to be this Texas Tech defense. They have been really, really great. I mean, we talk about transfer targets. Texas Tech built their entire defense through the transfer portal, and it has been one of the best units in the country this year so far. And I really like them in this matchup against a Houston team that has looked good so far, but I just think Texas Tech is way too much. So give me Texas Tech and maybe giving them covered this spread of 10.5 points now that where it's sitting. I just think that they're a very good football team offensively and defensively.
Yeah, I'm also going to side with Texas Tech. I really don't like Houston at all. The Astros really make me hate Houston completely, and I think that this Texas Tech team is a great offense. They have an air raid offense, but they can still run the ball. They just execute, and I think this is the best team in the Big 12.
Moving on to our next one here, Mississippi State taking on Texas A&M. And obviously this A&M team, they've had some big wins to start the year. Number 6 team in the entire country. Obviously that Notre Dame win was a huge one, but they've just played really good, convincing football so far. And then Mississippi State, you know, as you watched Tennessee play them last week, they're a rough bunch. They're a pretty good team. They can give you good, tough competition. And obviously that home field advantage is a big thing for them. They're not getting that one in this, though. And obviously, look at the quarterback play. Shapen has been the guy for them. 8 touchdowns, 1,064 yards, only 3 interceptions. And then Marcel Reed on the other side for Texas A&M. One of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country, big time playmaker. He's very slithery, good at making plays in the backfield. You can't really get to him and get him down, and that just makes him really hard to stop because they have a good rushing attack as well. Dalton, talk about the rushing game for these two teams.
Yeah, both teams have two of the best running backs in college football, or
Yeah.
not in college football, in the SEC, and maybe even college football. And I'm gonna start with Mississippi State because I watched him last week, and he was going off against Tennessee. Killed him in that ball game like crazy. Fluff Bothwell is a guy not to mess with. He's an excellent ball carrier. I mean, you rush over 100 yards against Tennessee, that's defense, and that's a sign there that you're a pretty good running back. And then another guy that I've said last year, I talked about how good he was. And I think this is the guy that's starting to spark everything up. He had a good week last week. I think
Sure.
Le'Veon Moss is an excellent running back, kind of guy that he was leading the SEC last year for the longest time,
Yeah.
and Dylan Sampson finally overtook him. Le'Veon Moss is just a stud. Both these guys are excellent running backs. Huge part in this game.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest part of these two offenses is their rushing attack in general. Obviously, Mississippi State leans on it a little bit more than Texas A&M does. But like you said, Le'Veon Moss had an incredible week last week and finally got going on the ground at a very high level. Obviously, we talked about these running backs, but now we're going to talk about the receivers. Thompson being the lead guy for Mississippi State, 20 catches, 324 yards, three touchdowns. And I know they got a lot of guys going in that Tennessee game, so it'll be interesting to see how they use their entire receiving core and potentially even get Fluff Bothwell going there too, because when you're that good, why not give him more touches? I mean, they let him make plays. And then you look at Texas A&M, and Kevin Concepcion had an incredible week last week. But also you've got Mario Craver, who has been the best receiver in college football statistically speaking, or at least one of the best. 477 yards on what is your quarterback's 1,076 is nearly half of them. So big time playmaker. Get the ball in his hands and let him run. And obviously this Texas Tech or Texas A&M offense in general has been very high powered. We comboed up with a pretty tough defense too. Going to make a pick in this one. Dalton, I'll let you lead us here as Texas A&M plays at Kyle Field.
Yes, I'm looking at the spread now, and I'm thinking that that's crazy to me. I
Yeah, it's
think this
huge.
Mississippi State team is really hated on. They played an excellent game against Tennessee, and I think Tennessee's a great football team. Obviously, it's a little bit because I'm a Tennessee fan, but I think this Mississippi State team can go in here and make it a close game. But I still think this Texas A&M team is just a little bit too much for them.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you there. They're just too strong. I mean, A&M is just, they've looked so good. They've looked like a juggernaut so far this year. Give me A&M to get a pretty big win here. But yeah, you're right. That 16.5 spread, I don't know if they cover that. That's going to be tough to do. Moving on to our next one here, Miami taking on Florida State. And Florida State obviously going to have a bounce back game here after a rough loss last week. They were sitting inside that top 15, looking to be a top 10 team, and just can't have that kind of loss. Again, they were number 8 in the country, losing to Virginia. Now, again, they did have to go into that building, and that's not easy to do. And especially when the fans, showed up a little bit, still not max capacity, which is they got to do better when they're playing a top 10 team. But Florida State now going to get this crazy home environment, and that's arguably one of the best, if not the best, in the ACC. And Miami, they're playing hot football right now. I mean, this is arguably, in my opinion, other there with maybe Ohio State, the best team in the country. I think them and Ohio State have proven that so far. Carson Beck is the lead passer for Miami. They do want to run the ball a lot, though, so his statistics have died down a little bit from the start of the year. 972 yards, 7 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, and he likes to go out to his main targets quite a bit. But again, he's had a real good resurgence this year. A lot of that was the Georgia drops, and we saw that bite him again. So maybe they have to figure things out down there in Georgia. I think he's probably happy with his transfer decision. Thomas Castellanos, of course, having a great year so far for Florida State. Been a great rusher for them. I'm close to 200 yards, if not over that, on the season. But again, you look at his passing game, and that's also improved. 850 passing yards, 45 for 70, so still not a ton of passing attempts. 4 touchdowns, 2 to 3 interceptions. He's got to calm down with the mistakes he's making. And again, that was what cost him a ton at Boston College. So you see that kind of follow over into last week when he made a mistake early in the game and threw a pretty bad interception. But still, I trust him a lot. He's had a good year, and this is going to be a very important one against a huge rival. Don't talk about the rushing attack here.
Yeah, I'm going to start with Florida State. Sawchuk from Florida State is an excellent running back, in my opinion. This guy needs to be the kind of guy they spark the offense, especially when you're talking about Castellanos struggling with throwing interceptions. That's the kind of guy you got to feed the ball or something in that situation. Give him the ball, take the stress off the quarterback a little bit. And the same thing, honestly, at Miami, because Carson Beck was notorious for that last year.
Yeah.
He would take pressure, and this guy would throw a stupid ball or something, or it would just wasn't as inaccurate. And they have that running back at Miami, and I feel like that's why he's helping him out a lot. Mark Fletcher Jr. is a stud. That guy makes plays everywhere. One of the best players on this offense and this team in general, and the kind of guy that wins you ball games like this.
Yeah, he's been so important for this offense. They've had such an improvement in the rushing attack. It's definitely boosted their team up a lot. And then you look at these lead receivers. Malachi Tony for Carson Beck, a young guy who's a difference maker in his first year there. And Carson Beck has already got a really good trust with him to let him make plays. And he so far has been doing that for them. But Deuce Robinson on the other side for Florida State, that is by far Castellanos' best target. But he did have a huge drop last week. You know he's going to want to bounce back for that because that drop ends up sealing that game, and it's a catch he has to make if he wants to be a superstar receiver. But he is a huge target on the outside, a big time playmaker, nearly 350 yards and only 17 catches with 3 touchdowns. So we'll see if Castellanos can go back out there and trust him again after a rough drop last week. Going to make a pick in this one. A very important game in the ACC, and Florida State has shown me that they can definitely compete in this level of game, which before the year I don't know if I'd have said that. But I still trust this Miami roster. I trust this Miami team. I think Miami's one of the deepest rosters in the entire league and all of college football. Their offense, their defense is just great. So give me Miami to get a huge win on the road at Florida State. Dalton, your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm actually going to defer from you here. I think that this Miami team hasn't had a wake up call yet, and I believe this Florida State team just had one. So I think that they're going to come out and absolutely throw out from the get go, get going, and I believe that's what's going to let them win this game.
Yeah, and if they play their best football, they definitely can. Moving on to our next one here, the last game we got on the docket. Of course, like I said before, no Tennessee this week, so we'll be diving into Tech, taking on Wake Forest. Of course, this Wake Forest team 0-2 in the ACC, but they've had two close losses. They lost to NC State, who we just beat, so that would give us a little bit of an advantage there. And then they lost a really close one last week. But the bigger story is the potential injuries that they could have, and that could be a big loss for them. You go down and look at their starting quarterback and Robbie Ashford. He's on that injury report potentially. Had a brace on his knee last week, kind of limited in the rushing game, which is a big part of his game, as you can tell. He only has one touchdown through the passing game so far. And when they get down to the red zone, it's him and Claiborne, and that's all they do is just run the ball. So it'd be interesting to see what they change because they're going to have to with his injury. 916 yards, 3 interceptions. Like I said before, only the one passing touchdown. Then you look over at Kyron Drones, was having a pretty rough year going into the last two games, and then kind of bounced back and had two really good games, kind of built confidence. Last game was great from him. He stood in, took a couple hits while making throws, delivered a really good ball to Benji Gosnell on a 3rd and long that we had to have. So when it mattered most, he finally figured it out last week. I think confidence has been instilled back into him, but at the same time, I just think Philip Montgomery being the head coach has made it a more offensive friendly thing, scheme for him, and just allowed him to get more confidence and open up this passing attack. 1,100 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 to 3 interceptions, and he hasn't thrown one in the last 2 weeks as well. So hopefully he can keep that going and keep the ball in our possession because that's what favors Tech in this game for sure. Looking at the rushing attack, Dalton, I'll let you start us over there on Wake Forest side.
Yep, for Damon Claiborne, for Wake Forest, Damon Claiborne's an absolute stud. This guy played in Virginia, somewhat local guy. Played against a few teams that I played against, and this guy's a heck of an athlete. He's a sophomore, I believe, and then he's just an absolute menace at running the ball. Great at it. Very important for this offense, like you said. But there's issues with injuries and stuff with him.
Yeah.
Last week he got injured, and I feel like that was a big reason why they end up losing to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and that 2 point conversion play, he can't come on
Yep.
the field. It's a rib thing, but it's also a concussion protocol potentially. So there's a lot of things going on. And you know, running backs, they end up getting into a ton of injury issues generally because that's just the toughest position to play on the offensive side when it comes to injuries, that and the offensive line, and that's the whole game when it comes to running the ball. So on the other side for Virginia Tech, I'll first start with Marcellus Hawkins, who's been our lead rusher all year long, kind of did a pretty good job, wasn't playing bad football. But he was the only option we really had. We didn't have anything else going for us in the first couple games. And then last week, we untapped the potential of Terrion Stewart. This is a guy that was one of the best running backs in college football last year. When you look at his advanced metrics and his statistics overall, he was rushing for over 5 yards a carry his entire career in college football. Never been below five. You know that's great because that's every 2 carries he's getting a first down. But also, he come from a system at Bowling Green that just favored him, and we didn't really use him very well in the first couple weeks. Now, part of that was he was a late add to our roster due to missing. I had to finish his school up at Bowling Green, so he didn't get here till in the summer, and then he got injury issues. So wasn't healthy to start the year. Don't think he even touched the field against South Carolina. Comes in against Vanderbilt, doesn't do much. And then against ODU, he actually had a pretty good game, but we didn't give him the ball enough. And obviously, you know how those 3 games went. Well, then Wofford, he starts taking some more carries, has a really good day, him and Hawkins both. And then leading into the NC State game, he goes for 174 yards and looked like a monster that he is. He's a guy that he is not going to go down on first contact. He didn't go down pretty much ever in that game on first contact. And so when he's able to get out and make plays, they've unlocked something here in their offense that can actually maybe boost this team up and play on a decent level. Again, like I said before, we can actually maybe win 3 or 4 or 5 games now because they actually have a run game. And that was so bad in our first 3 games of the year. You look down at the receivers, of course, Barnes being the lead guy for Wake Forest. They've got a couple options, but again, they're more of a run-heavy team. And through their 4 games, I know Ashford's got 900 yards, but he doesn't target them once they get in the red zone. And then for Virginia Tech, Aiden Green has been our lead receiver, 15 catches, 244 yards, and a touchdown. He had some drop issues in game one. I think he was targeted 12 times and only had 5 catches, so drop issues and just messing him a couple times. But since then, he's locked in, figured out the hands problems. But Donovan Green on the outside, on the other hand, hasn't. Had some issues, dropped 3 passes last game. We still won that game, so it wasn't a huge deal. But if he can just figure out how to make a play with the ball as well, they've actually got some really talented receivers. I mean, Cam Seldon, you know how talented he was at Tennessee. They were using him as a running back, and he had over 200 yards. So he could be a difference maker if they just get him going. And so far, they've done well since they've changed over to Phil at head coach. And then Isaiah Spencer, a name to watch out for as well, transferring up in division from Jackson State in the FCS. And he had a great year there, and we're starting to use him more. In 3 catches last game, 40 plus yards. And so overall, Tech's offense can get a lot better if we just run the ball consistently with Stewart, let Drones get going a little bit more on the ground. I don't love that we threw the ball 34 times last week. That's not his game. But even if we are going to throw it, let's use all our receivers. Let's use that room that has some real talent. Let them make plays. Go down and look at this defense. Anderson being the lead tackler, you don't ever want a DB to be your lead tackler. That's a little bit of an issue. But on the same wavelength, a safety, a little bit better because they're fitting in the run game. Changes things up a little bit. Isaiah Cash had an incredible week last week. He's been so good since we started him. And then Christian Ellis. What an unbelievable game from him. Broke up the game-winning pass, but also had 2 other PBUs. And you got to expect that those guys are going to be the starters moving forward. We've had some changes due to some guys leaving the program and some guys taking red shirts and sitting out. And those changes haven't made the defense any worse. And heck, they may have made it better. So I love what they've done on defense since Phil took over, and Cephas kind of just done his thing on defense. He's not been had anybody messing with his game. Kevin Gilliam up front is great. Kelvin Gilliam, and then of course Kamari Copeland is a monster there too. We've talked about him this year, probably being our best defensive player. And they've had some changes as well. When you talk about we've used some freshmen the last 2 weeks. Sheldon Robinson was playing some on the outside, and then of course the big difference, Noah Chambers, subbed in at linebacker, and a freshman, true freshman, not redshirt, true freshman, and had 7 tackles, a TFL, and a sack last week. That guy's got to be on the field. I know you don't love how they do things and you don't want to burn a red shirt, but it seems like the red shirt might be going away in college football anyways with this whole 5 to play 5 thing that they're going to bring out, which is going to allow guys to play 5 full years no matter what. And if that happens, you'd love to get the best usage you can out of your freshman. And Noah Chambers is easily one of our 2 best linebackers. So I got to see him line up for Tech here this weekend as well. And overall, the special teams going to be a big thing for Tech. It always has been. You know, the Beamer Ball, the whole thing was play great special teams and you can win big games. And they did back then, and they haven't done that in the last couple of years. We had really bad special teams last year. But so far this year, we've got, I would argue, the best kicker in college football, and definitely one of the best, if not the best. Like I said, he's 5th all time in field goal percentage in the history of college football. So there's something to be said about his success. And our punter's pretty solid too. So both of those things going to be keys as well. And overall, Tech just has to keep on rolling, playing the way they've been playing, and they can get another win here over a Wake Forest team that isn't as good as that NC State team they just beat. Dalton, your pick here.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Tech this week. I think that this Tech team is firing all cylinders after that one win last week. Really surprised me a lot, and this Wake Forest team is good. I think it will be a close ball game, but I feel like Tech can pull this through at Lane Stadium.
Yeah, and before the season started, when I was picking out games, I just thought on our schedule looked the easiest. Obviously, I said that Wake Forest was worse than ODU. That was a statement I made before the year started. I think that statement holds true personally. ODU has still looked very good, and we should never have lost the way we did. But part of that was dysfunctional from the top. And now we've changed things over. We've become a more functional football team. We won a one-score game for the first time in a long time. But also, this Wake Forest team, I still think is probably, you could argue, other than Wofford, the worst team we've played. And this is a team you have to beat. Now, obviously, 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have said we could beat anybody. But the way you played against NC State proved you can clearly beat a team like this. NC State beat them by 10 and was down big at half. So just lock in the first half. That's where Wake Forest plays their best football, and then outmatch them in the second half and get a big win here to move to 3-3 and 2-0 in the ACC. I don't think that there was any way I thought that that was going to be possible after the first 3 games of the season. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Another great week of college football. Obviously, Dalton has a little more time this week. He doesn't have any Tennessee going on, so might catch him down here in Blacksburg maybe, get him at a game for us. Obviously, come down here a couple times last year and the year before, so Tech getting a decent time here. Not a 12 o'clock, thank the Lord. The 12 o'clock, when you're getting there for the student section at 10, it's a little early. I got cooked last week, actually, or 2 weeks ago in the sun. So hopefully this 1 o'clock will be a little bit better when it comes to, I don't have to get there at 10 a.m. I'm not an early morning person. Obviously, looking forward to this week. There's some huge games. Alabama Vanderbilt is going to be one of the biggest games in the SEC, which 2 years ago, if you said that, everybody would laugh in your face. So that's really fun and interesting. And that's just kind of the new era of college football, giving teams a chance, certain teams to have a chance to come back and maybe do something with what they've got. Transferred in, of course, Diego Pavia, going to be one of the most important players in that game. Dalton, if you got anything you want to add here, your chance now.
Yeah, I want to add the fact of the Alabama Vanderbilt game. I always think of that one clip of that one guy from Vanderbilt going, "Alabama, you're next," and then they cuts to Jalen Hurts going, "Theoretically, they are next," and then Alabama beats them by 50 points. You don't
Yeah.
think that is the same Vanderbilt team? Like you think of the Vanderbilt teams from like when I was growing up, and Tennessee was not very good, but we still beat them almost every year. They were just every once in a while, but and now they're actually competitive. And I think this team is like a competitor in the SEC, which I never thought would happen. And like as a Tennessee fan, you always considered Vanderbilt the little brother in Tennessee, and they're getting up there. Like it's kind of scary. I'm looking forward to that game. I'm thinking about going to that game in Neyland. I don't know yet though.
Yeah, and obviously nobody expected this. Nobody. I mean, last year going into that Vanderbilt game was thinking, oh, we can kickstart our year, and that's when they figured it out. And we saw the rest of the season that they were legit. Then they had a pretty decent portal this offseason and built a little bit of a roster there. Now they're a top 16 team. I think they're ranked 16th and playing Alabama in a ranked matchup. I mean, it's
And college
silly.
game days there. It's the craziest thing.
Yes.
College game day is watching Vanderbilt.
It is. It's actually absurd, and it's crazy that that's where we're at now. But that's because they just did such a good job at finding a portal quarterback, finding a coach in Jerry Kill that is a absolute difference maker, and he brought Stowers and Pavia with him, which is probably the two best players on that team. So Tech, again, look out for us if we can make a move to go get a good coach and bring some players with him. I think the funniest possible thing is if we went and got Dan Mullen, his quarterback is Anthony Calandria, who played at Virginia, which would be the weirdest thing ever if that's the story you got him. But again, I don't know what will happen. It'll be interesting to see when we come down to hiring time. Obviously, there's been some more jobs open up. We talked about Arkansas having their job open up. Oklahoma State has an open job. UCLA, Virginia Tech. That's your big power jobs open so far. You're probably thinking Kentucky can open up if they don't have a good year, which they don't look like they're going to. Florida could open up. Now, they're tired of Billy Napier, but I don't know how much they want to pay that huge buyout he's going to have. And there's a couple other schools. So it'll get interesting here. I mean, heck, after we beat NC State, people were calling for Dave Doran's job at NC State. So who knows what jobs will be available? But if I was looking at the market right now, I think with Tech's BOV cleared money that they got, I think it's the most enticing job right now. So hoping that Florida doesn't open up or something like that and keeps us at the top of that list. And with the money we have, we can really go get any coach available. So we'll see what happens. Is this going to be a more fun time than the games on the field? We have the stuff going on off the field potentially. It'll be interesting. I think that GM hire will happen pretty soon as well because you want to get him in the building to help with the head coaching search. Again, Dalton, if there's anything else you want to add, your time to do so is
Uh,
now.
Go Vols.
Obviously, he's got to throw a go balls in there, even though they're not playing this week. he's gonna be excited to see him next week when they get up and play. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe helps a ton. We're closing in on 100, like I've said before. We want to do this mock draft here soon. We'll get Dalton on there and a couple other people that have been on the channel. And I'm just excited for the potential of the future of the channel.
Yep.
Obviously, thank you guys so much, and peace.
Peace.